Hello, Tampa. This is Jeff Stanislaw, your host of Let's Go Low, right here on AM 820, the Big Eight. It must be Saturday morning still, and you're still tuned in listening to all the great tips and information that we're providing you right here on the Let's Go Low show. And this episode, we are picking up kind of where we left off with our special guest, Emily Nowak. Emily and I have been talking about lowering your strokes, lowering your handicap, saving you some frustration around the green. And so our first two segments, we talked about chipping. We talked about, ball position and weight on the first segment. And then we talked a little bit more about dialing it in, when to chip, how to hit, making turns and locking in that triangle. Emily, thanks for joining us once again.
Yep, happy to be back.
So, most professionals would probably, reinforce what I'm going to say right here and why we're spending, this whole episode on, the short game. And that is where most amateurs can save their strokes.
Yes, for sure. And it's a place where you can really be in control of those strokes.
And the other thing is, it's actually probably one of the easier things to practice. You
Yeah,
don't need to grab your whole
everywhere.
bag. You can grab a wedge and your putter and head out to the range, your backyard. Well, maybe not so much your backyard with a putter, but I guess depending on what your yard is. But
living room.
You can, very easily, you don't have to load up all the clubs and bring everything. You can grab two clubs and start working on a short game session and really, dial it in. So, again, Emily, thanks for joining us. This is Jeff Stanislaw, your host of Let's Go Low, brought to you by Golfers Unite. It's golfersunite.com. Check it out for all the great hookups. Emily, let's talk about putting. Let's get into it because, our goal is to, remove the 3 and 4 putts out there. Try to make every green, a 2 putt or a 1 putt for your mid to higher handicappers, and they will be loving life, right?
Yes, for sure. Yep, putting is one of those things that is a lot of feel, but you still have to make sure you have the right tool in your hand. You have to make sure you have the right setup. But once you get those two dialed, you practice away, and yeah, that's how good players are made. Practicing putting, standing over those short putts, getting their speeds down, all that. So it's definitely a great spot to save some strokes. But yeah.
So where should we start on putting? I think the first thing probably would be the most natural aspect of is, you're marking your ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Your ball lands on the green, whether it's a par 3 and hopefully you got there in 1.
Yeah.
Or if it's an approach shot on a par 4 and hopefully you got there in 2, you're going to mark your ball and pick up your ball. I think a lot of amateurs, like even if they're whatever, it's their turn or whatever, they just walk up and whack it and don't really do it. I think a good exercise is always to mark your ball and clean it, right, to start, because it might have, some mud or some dirt on it underneath that you can't see. And then what do you do from there, Emily?
From there, yeah, I would take a look at read the green. I love a pre-shot routine, whether it's the full swing or on the putting green. I think it's great to kind of ground yourself before every shot. So yeah, mark that ball, and while you're down there marking it, kind of take a look at the green, see what the break is. If you are feeling professional that day, go to the other side if you're playing for some money. But yeah, even as you're walking up there, get a read for the green. Kind of take a look at the high spots, take a look at the low spots. Fix a ball mark or 2 on your way up, but yeah, really just get yourself grounded as you walk up. Yep. Always be fixing those ball marks and make sure you're fixing it correctly so it'll grow back nicely. But yeah, I love a grounding little pre-shot. You get up there. This is what I do before every single putt, and just kind of get in the zone to make a nice stroke.
Right. So, all right. Well, your ball hit the green. Now we marked our ball and we cleaned the ball. Right now we're checking out the line. And like you said, I love it. Feeling professional that day. You're going to go on the other side and take a look at it. I always take a look on the other side when I got something that I feel is a bigger break. You know what I mean? Maybe kind of get a feel for it and maybe stop halfway and see how steep that, downhill is or how big the hill is up. And if you're walking to the other side and you're on an uphill putt, you can actually get a feel for how uphill it is. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about like locking in a distance in your mind? You know, I mean, we don't have rulers, we're not exactly out there, but you should know what a 5-foot putt is, a 10-foot putt, you know, a 20-foot putt locked into your mind.
Yeah, yeah. And we talked about this with chipping a little bit. Usually people will pace that off. So really that's unless you're really good visually, some people kind of struggle with that depth perception. So I would pace it off, kind of get a feel of what 5 steps is, how many yards that is, and really figure out, like we talked about the clock, kind of what each tick back makes the ball do. And a good way to do this before your round, usually I like to go out on the putting green. On the practice green, you kind of take a stroke, you keep that putter within your feet. So go from toe to toe and take 5 to 8 strokes on the putting green. And that'll kind of make you see what inside your feet, how far that runs out. So when you're on the course, you kind of know what the speed is of the green, how far back you have to take that in comparison to your feet. So, yeah.
Yeah, so okay, you know, we're kind of telling our story. This is Jeff Stanislow. You're listening to Let's Go Low right here on AM 820. And our special guest, Emily Nowak, who works with Golfers Unite and does some content on it. You can check out some of her, you know, tips and training episodes on our socials. So you can just search up at When Golfers Unite, and on most social channels at When Golfers Unite. Check out Emily. You can see some of these great tips that she's providing. And then, you know, we're talking about putting right now. We're talking about shaving strokes with the putter. And we just talked about the ball landed on the green. And what do you do? Mark the ball, clean it, fix a couple divots or you know, ball marks. You know, if you don't have a great read on it, maybe get it from the other side and, you know, take a feel for what's going on. Now, the next logical step is to, you know, kind of address the ball. You know, you got your read. Now it's time to address the ball. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, what you set up when you set up to make a putt.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is trusting that read. So once you have that read locked in, line your ball up, use whatever line is on the ball. I think they say the Titleist logo, or like the tailor-made, the names on the ball can sometimes be crooked. So they recommend you line it up with the line on the side, or you draw a line. So line up the ball and trust it. Don't question that line. Once you have it down, hit that stroke. You've committed to that. That's really my biggest advice. Once you have that line down, you have to trust it, or else you're not trusting your line the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think that someone told me when I was playing golf, or I came up with it. I can't remember, but you have to, you know, you fall in love with the line, but you marry the speed. So,
Yes, exactly.
you know, you know, they both have to come together, I guess, for, you know, happy marriage. For us golfers is the two main important factors is the line and the speed. You know, if you can dial those in, let's talk a little bit about how you get some speed control out there and some good drills that you do to lock in the speed.
Yeah, so generally it's they are kind of in a relationship, but it's speed over line. So if you don't have that speed to get it there, it's not going in. So it's recommended that you practice speed more than your line, more than accuracy, to really dial that in. So like I said in the beginning, go out on the putting green, get your speed down, get the speed of the greens down before every round. They say it's about 18 putts before a round will get you dialed with the speed. But when you're out there, don't be trying to make those lag putts. Put down don't even aim at the hole. I like to do, again, the ladder drill where you put a stick or a tee down about 2 feet away and hit one in the shorter ladder, farther ladder, even farther ladder. So really just practice those speed drills when you're out there. And then you can practice making.
There's lots of great games that you can play. There's like a point game. You can put like, you know, a tee, you know, behind and a tee in front, and you get a point for every time, you know, you land it between the tee and the hole, and then you get 2 points for if you land it between the hole and the back, you know, tee. And
or people will they'll only hit to the fringe, like they'll avoid the hole in general. They'll just hit to the fringe because that's just kind of like a line to hit to. So yeah, if you're plain Janing out there, you don't even need tees or anything. But yeah, I would say speed over direction any day of the week with
But
practice.
definitely, this is Jeff Stanislaw. You're listening to Let's Go Low right here on AM 820. Our special guest, Emily Nowak, graduate of Ferris State's Professional Golf Management School. 5 years experience at working at high-end clubs, doing training for and teaching for golfers of all different types of ages. So we are now, ready to make our putt. We have our line picked out, and we've worked on our speed in our practice range. Now it's time to execute. What goes through your head when it's time to make that putt? I think that's really one of the most important thing. For me, I have kind of one thing is I try to hit when I'm exhaling, not inhaling because it wants to move you up. Exhaling, you can kind of stay a little bit more stable. And 2 is I try to keep my head down and I count to 1 before I move my head, because a lot of amateur golfers, they want to see the ball go in, right?
Yep. And that's,
so
yeah, that's one of the biggest things.
If you do the 1 second rule after you strike it, your ball is staying down, then you can look up and you're not going to pull it because you're looking. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love the not peeking. That's something that a lot of people do. I promise you, you're not going to lose your ball on the green. You don't have to look for it. But yeah, and I like the breathing too. A lot of people have been getting into the breathing right now with golf. I really like that. But yeah, just the biggest thing you can't do is you can't be standing over that ball questioning your line. So like we talked about, you chose the line, you have to hit that line. And just think about it rolling over the next 4 inches, rolling end over end into that hole. But yeah, I like the breathing. I like the not peeking. Those are 2 great tips. I agree.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about 3-putt killers. We, usually happens is the root cause is always the first putt. It's usually not the second, right? So it's really important to get those distances down, because, all of a sudden you're leaving yourself a 6-foot putt on a 20-foot putt because you're short. You got a tester coming back with what they, the guys say or the gals say, there's some meat on those bones, right?
Yes.
And you gotta go putt it. So the other thing is, hitting it, if it's a putt and there's a low side and a downside on your second putt, is getting it on the wrong side of the hole. Most success comes for if you keep the putt, even if it is, doesn't go in, but you want to stay on the low side of the hole. And then, never leave it short on a putt that you should make. Those are usually 3, what they call 3-putt killers. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so usually, yes, there's the pro side, the amateur side, but I was just reading something that the pros are actually getting away from that. So they typically want to be 2 feet past the hole, but now they're kind of happy with a 2-foot radius on either side. So anywhere within 2 feet is good with them. But yeah, we talked about this last week. Find where your miss is. See, if I miss, do I want to leave it short? Do I want to fly it past the hole? And then, yeah, I would say speed control is probably the biggest thing that is causing those 3 putts. People aren't practicing that, because usually if you're 3-putting, you don't have a 2-footer back. You don't have a 2.5-footer back. You usually have 5 to 8 feet that we are really banking on making. So yeah, I would say speed control is probably the biggest killer, and just figuring out where you want to miss that putt and where you especially want to avoid.
Yeah, and then let's talk a little bit about the gimme. You know what I mean? You're playing a nice, social game, and you have a 2-3 foot putt left, or and someone says, oh, that's good. What do you do? Do you go up and putt it, or you take it? I think most amateurs just take it and sweep it and off they go. But it kills them come tournament time.
Yes.
When they got something on the line, whether it's I always kind of go in and at least I'll rapid fire the putt, but I will make the putt. I'll say, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm just going to give this a quick stroke.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's good etiquette. Having worked at really high-end clubs, I do notice that a lot of people like to swipe them and then just kind of take it and watch how low their handicap gets. That seems like that's what people are kind of chasing, just that low handicap. But if you're a low handicap, I gotta see those hitting the bottom of the cup. So I like your style. At least try to see it go in the bottom of the cup. I'm not a huge gimme person. If I do give gimmies, I'll usually take the first few holes to see how they're putting and see how far that gimme radius is going to be before I go. But yeah, I really like your method. You have to at least
you
attempt
thank
it.
me, you appreciate it. So I'm going to just work on, a quick distance here thing. And then
Yeah,
you
yeah. I don't feel like the hole's complete unless I at least attempt to make that last putt.
Well, there's so much more we can talk about putting and shaving some strokes. We'll have you back, Emily, and we can talk about like surveying the land and whether there's water or, if you're playing an elevated course, there's some courses where you're think it's an uphill putt, but that you're on a mountainside and the whole thing is downhill and you don't take that into consideration. Thanks for joining us, Emily. This is another episode of Let's Go Low right here on AM 820, the Big 8 Radio. Thanks again. And as always, let's go low.